When war hit France in 1940, most Jewish families lost everything. The Wertheimers didn't. They handed Chanel's ownership to a Christian friend, escaped abroad, and reclaimed it after liberation. Coco herself tried to use rules to steal it, but failed. So how did a quiet Jewish family protect a billion-dollar brand under Hitler's nose? In the 1870s, Europe is rebuilding after war, and a man named Ernest Wertheimer leaves Alsace for Paris with nothing but savings and sharp instincts. He doesn't choose fashion, art, or banking. He chooses makeup. That single decision shapes a fortune few people ever connect to Chanel. Ernest buys into a small theatrical makeup company called Bourjois, famous for its red powders used by actresses at the Folies Bergère. The brand's success spreads fast. By 1898, Bourjois sold in London, Berlin, even New York. Its Java rice powder became one of the first global cosmetics hits, selling over 2 million boxes a year. The Wertheimers suddenly moved from middle-class merchants to serious industrialists. His sons, Pierre, born 1888, and Paul, grow up inside this booming business. They learn chemistry, marketing, and distribution before most young men have left school. The brothers modernized Bourjois, opening factories, using tin packaging instead of fragile glass, and pioneering early advertising targeted at women, decades before beauty marketing became an industry term. But success brings curiosity. By the 1920s, French perfume is exploding, and Pierre sees opportunity far beyond powders. Meanwhile, a young woman named Gabrielle Chanel is shaking Paris with her minimalist fashion and independent attitude. She's rich in talent, but short on capital. Her boutique earns prestige, yet her dream, a perfume carrying her name, needs investment, production, and international reach. Enter Théophile Bader, founder of Galeries Lafayette, who knows both worlds, the Wertheimers' money and Chanel's creativity. In 1924, he arranged a meeting that rewrote luxury history. At a polished table in Paris, Pierre Wertheimer listens as Chanel outlines her idea. A fragrance line built on exclusivity, sold only to the elite. Pierre agrees, but with numbers tilted his way. The deal gives the Wertheimers 70% of Parfums Chanel. Bader keeps 20%, and Chanel herself just 10%. She believes she's trading a slice of control for the freedom to focus on design. Instead, she's handed away the majority of what becomes the most profitable perfume brand in the world. Within 10 years, Chanel No. 5 dominated the market. Factories in Pantene and New York churn out millions of bottles annually. The Wertheimers manage logistics, raw material sourcing, and global exports while Chanel handles image and style. By 1935, Parfums Chanel generated profits larger than the rest of her fashion house combined. Yet behind the glamour, resentment brews. Chanel begins to call Pierre the bandit who stole my fortune. She demands renegotiation, claiming she deserves parity. He refuses. Their partnership, once creative, becomes a cold business war. The irony? Both sides need each other. Pierre for Chanel's genius, and Chanel for the brand's soul. Neither knows the storm approaching will make that tension a matter of survival rather than pride. Because in just a few years, the world around them collapses into war. And what started as a business feud soon turns into a fight for existence itself. And that's where the story bends, when profit meets persecution, and survival depends on a single daring move in the shadows of wartime Europe. When survival meant outsmarting both war and a legend. By the late 1930s, France felt like a ticking clock. Political tension rises, markets crash, and the threat of war creeps closer every month. Inside this storm sits the Wertheimer family, wealthy, Jewish, and running one of the most profitable perfume companies in the world. They can sense what's coming, and they start preparing long before the bombs fall. Pierre Wertheimer understands risk better than most businessmen of his time. He knows how governments turn on fortunes when survival becomes political. Therefore, when Germany invaded France in 1940, and the S began seizing Jewish-owned companies, he already had a plan in motion. Before the first German tank even enters Paris, Pierre transfers ownership of Parfums Chanel to a trusted friend, Félix Amiot, a Catholic industrialist. On paper, Amiot becomes the new Aryan owner. In reality, he's a shield. The arrangement looks ordinary, but is a masterstroke. While thousands of Jewish companies are seized or destroyed, Parfum Chanel keeps operating quietly under Amiot's name. The factories keep producing, shipments continue, and no official questions the paperwork. However, one person does notice: Coco Chanel. She's still living at the Ritz Hotel, enjoying protection through her connections with German officers. She sees her old business partners flee and thinks this is her chance to reclaim the empire she believes they stole. She writes to occupation authorities, arguing that Chanel should belong to her since it was once owned by Jews. She uses laws against the family who made her brand global. But the Wertheimers outthink her. From exile, Pierre monitors the situation through lawyers in New York and Lisbon. When the war ended in 1945, Amiot quietly transferred ownership back. No one can challenge it. The paperwork is airtight, and Chanel's attempts fall apart. 2 years later, in 1947, Pierre met with Chanel again. The relationship is cold but businesslike. He offers her a new deal: a lifetime royalty on sales and full creative freedom, while his family retains ownership. She accepts. Parfum Chanel grows even faster, and her name becomes an immortal brand, though she never fully controls it again. That single legal trick, a temporary transfer signed before the occupation, saves their fortune. Out of all the Jewish families who lost everything, the Wertheimers are one of the few who emerged not only intact but stronger. However, victory changes people. Pierre now understands power isn't about visibility. It's about control you don't have to show. And that mindset shapes everything the family does for the next 80 years. How the quiet years turned Chanel into a private powerhouse. When the war ends, France tries to rebuild. The world is tired, poor, and hungry. But the Wertheimers return with something most people have lost: ownership. Their perfume company survives untouched, hidden behind clever paperwork and loyal allies. Now, Pierre Wertheimer begins a new phase, turning Chanel from a famous name into a global business machine. The fashion side of Chanel struggles. Coco is older and stubborn about trends. Her style feels frozen in time, while Paris shifts toward Christian Dior's new look. However, the perfume business tells another story. Chanel No. 5 keeps selling everywhere. American soldiers buy it for sweethearts back home. By the late 1940s, it became the most recognizable perfume in the world. Pierre focuses on that strength. He opens new production sites in New Jersey, expands to Latin America, and pushes distribution into department stores. By the mid-1950s, Parfum Chanel controlled more than 60% of all French perfume exports. The company's profit fuels everything else, from relaunching Chanel's fashion line to financing vineyards and racehorses. Pierre's son, Jacques Wertheimer, took charge in 1965. He runs the company with the same silence his father believed in. They avoid publicity, avoid Wall Street, and avoid interviews. The rule is simple: own everything, say nothing. Therefore, Chanel stays fully private. No investors, no shareholders, no public reports. During the 1970s, Chanel's perfume earned millions each year, yet its image stays exclusive. The Wertheimers build luxury slowly: limited boutiques, controlled pricing, and small production runs. The family also invests heavily outside fashion. Vineyards in Bordeaux, a horse stable that wins Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe, and discreet property in Europe and America. That quiet decade builds something more valuable than money: control. The Wertheimers understand that true luxury doesn't come from expansion, it comes from staying rare. However, time never stands still. A new generation is waiting in the wings, ready to bring Chanel into a modern age while keeping its silence unbroken. How two brothers turned an old brand into a global power. When Jacques Wertheimer steps back in the late 1970s, his two sons take over. Alain and Gérard Wertheimer grow up inside quiet wealth. They know the family's power comes from silence, so they keep it that way. Alain runs the business from New York and Paris, while Gérard focuses on watches, jewelry, and vineyards. Together, they turn Chanel into one of the richest private companies in the world. Alain believes in slow, exact growth. He studies the luxury market of the 1980s and sees chaos. brands expanding too fast, selling to everyone, and losing their prestige. Therefore, he does the opposite. He cuts Chanel's perfume distributors from around 18,000 to 12,000, closing shops that don't meet their image. This makes Chanel harder to find and even more desired. He also invests heavily in boutiques. By the early 1990s, Chanel has flagship stores in Paris, Tokyo, New York, and Hong Kong. Every store looks the same: clean, calm, expensive. Inside, nothing screams for attention. Everything whispers status. Under Alain's leadership, Chanel grew quietly to more than $10 billion in annual sales by the early 2000s. By 2023, that number will reach around $20 billion. The Wertheimer brothers never go public, never sell shares, and never merge with other fashion giants. While LVMH and Kering build empires through buying brands, the Wertheimers build one through patience. Gerard keeps his focus outside fashion: wines in Bordeaux, Napa Valley estates, and thoroughbred racehorses. Their horses win major titles in France and the UK, adding prestige beyond perfume. Even though they stay out of the spotlight, their fortune grows to around $40 billion, making them two of the richest people in France. However, for all their power, few people recognize their faces. That is exactly how they like it. They have turned invisibility into an art form. And while the world keeps chasing attention, the Wertheimers quietly hold the crown of timeless luxury. How Chanel stayed untouchable through crises and copies. Every empire faces storms. For Chanel, the problems come one after another. Fashion shifts, counterfeits flood markets, recessions cut spending, and global tastes change. Yet, the Wertheimers refuse to panic. Their rule is simple: never chase trends, make trends chase you. During the 1980s and 1990s, fake Chanel bags started appearing everywhere. Street markets in New York, Hong Kong, Paris. Millions of counterfeits move each year. Therefore, the family begins an expensive war against imitation. Every authentic bag gets an individual number, every batch tracked, and every logo placement measured to the millimeter. They hire teams of lawyers across countries, shutting down fake factories from Italy to Korea. But while others fight counterfeits by lowering prices or going public, Chanel does the opposite. It keeps prices rising. By doing so, the gap between fake and real grows larger. Owning the real thing becomes a statement, a quiet signal of status money alone cannot buy. Economic recessions come and go. In 2008, when most luxury houses panicked and cut prices, Chanel held firm. The company closes no stores, keeps its couture workshops open, and continues investing in artisans. This choice pays off. When the global economy recovers, Chanel's value climbs even higher. Between 2021 and 2023, the Wertheimers collect over $12 billion in dividends from the company, tax-free due to its private structure. It's a financial move as elegant as its products. No public investors, no explanations, no noise. Through every crisis, their message stays consistent. Luxury is control, and control means patience. Other brands depend on shareholders and stock prices. Chanel depends on one family's long memory. However, silence can't last forever. A new world is forming: digital, transparent, and loud. The question now is how the quietest dynasty in fashion will face an era built on exposure. How a silent family built a legacy that outlived Coco herself. Today, Chanel stands as one of the most powerful luxury houses in the world. Yet the people who own it rarely appear in public. The Wertheimer family continues to run everything privately, without interviews or social media, just as they always preferred. Their names don't appear on perfume bottles or fashion shows, but every sale adds to their empire. The numbers speak for themselves. Chanel makes around $20 billion in annual revenue, with profits that rival public companies like Hermès or Gucci. The Wertheimers' combined fortune places them among France's wealthiest families, behind Bernard Arnault of LVMH and the Bettencourt family of L'Oréal. However, what makes their wealth unusual is how quiet it remains. The company releases almost no data. There are no shareholders, no quarterly reports, no corporate speeches. Everything stays behind closed doors. Alain and Gerard keep the same habits that built the empire: discretion, loyalty, and control. Every top executive at Chanel is handpicked, and every successor learns the same lesson. Protect the brand before chasing profit. The company focuses on long-term moves, sustainable materials, French workshops, and small production runs that preserve value. Chanel avoids mass e-commerce, unlike its rivals. Instead, it invests in in-person experiences, marble boutiques, private fitting rooms, and events that feel personal. The family believes the mystery is part of the magic. The next generation is slowly stepping in, but no names are confirmed publicly. The Wertheimers prefer legacy over spotlight. Their vineyards still produce fine wine, their horses still race, and their art still fills quiet estates across Europe. Their story proves something rare in today's world, that real power doesn't need attention. The Wertheimers built an empire not by being loud, but by knowing exactly when to stay silent. And that's the untold side of Chanel's empire, power hidden behind perfume. If you love stories like this, subscribe and stay close. The next chapter of Secret Wealth is already unfolding.